Well, folks, we have finally made it. Number 100. Number 100 on the AFI's Top 100 Movies of All Time list. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to the final installment of the AFI Project. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Ben-Hur. This was directed by William Wyler. It was released in 1959. It is based on the book Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, written by Lew Wallace. And this movie stars Charlton Heston as Judah Ben-Hur, a Jewish prince who pretty much has it made, but then is framed for a crime that he did not commit by the man who would turn into his mortal enemy. Judah Ben-Hur is then sold into slavery, and through a series of just going from slave ships to just intolerable conditions, he finds himself the champion in a chariot race in which he wins. And through all of this, he learns that his mother and sister have been banished to a leper colony. Oh, and along the way, he runs into some guy, you may have heard of him. His name is Jesus Christ. In my Movie Nerds Club video for favorite Best Picture winners, I believe I ranked Ben-Hur either number 3 or number 2. I'll have to double check. But I love this movie. I always have, and I always will. And even over 60 years after this movie was made, I'm still a little shocked that a movie like this exists, because for many reasons, a movie like this could never be made again, and trust me, they have tried. But everything from the cinematography, to the writing, to the characters, and everything in between, this movie can never be duplicated. It can be imitated, but it can never be precisely duplicated. It is one of a kind, and that's what's so great about it. First, let's talk about Charlton Heston. If you just know him from Planet of the Apes or another movie, then I highly recommend you check out Ben-Hur, because I think this may be his very best performance. Seeing this revenge arc of Judah Ben-Hur going from high highs to low lows and even lower lows until finally making it to the chariot race and exacting revenge, it's very satisfying stuff. And I suppose this is as good a place as any to jump into the chariot race, because I think I've said it on multiple occasions, but the chariot race in this movie is just a work of art. The cinematographer for this movie was a man named Robert Surtees, who shot a lot of movies, but some that I've covered on the AFI Project include The Graduate from the early 70s. Now, I'm honestly surprised Surtees isn't talked about more often, because we gush on for days about Emmanuel Lubezki and Roger Deakins, and those are great cinematographers, let's not get that twisted. But Surtees choreographed this entire chariot race, and there is not an ounce of CGI to be found here. This was all done practically with real stunts. This must have been a nightmare to film, but he made it look easy. And what's brilliant about this chariot race is that it's not just dudes running around in a circle for like 3 or 4 laps. Like, there's actually a hefty amount of story going on here. Ben-Hur's mortal enemy is the heavy favorite, and Ben-Hur, despite rocking a sweet all-white chariot, is pretty much the underdog in this situation and has to fight from underneath. Also doesn't help that Ben-Hur's enemy, I believe his name is Masala, has a whip where he just whips people the entire race, not just his horses. So yeah, that's what he's dealing with here. The crashes are just bone-crunching. Like, I've seen this movie a lot of times, and whenever I see a crash incoming, I just prepare. I'm like, oh no, that's not good. And when the two finally meet and Masala starts whipping Ben-Hur with the whip, and Ben-Hur's trying to drive and avoid the whip at all costs, it's just great stuff. If you just watch one scene from this movie, the chariot race, that's your go-to. But stick around for the rest. But now I suppose I should just jump into the whole Jesus thing, because he does show up in this movie. But like I said in my Movie Nerds Club video when talking about Ben-Hur, I think he only has about 2 or 3 scenes, and when you do see him, you don't really see his face. You see the back of his head, or during the crucifixion, you see like the side of his head, but he's got the bloody face and everything. His exposure in this movie is very limited, and the movie treats him with great reverence. When you hear a certain note in the score, you know that Jesus is coming. And there's a nice little mini arc there between Ben-Hur and Jesus. And that in Ben-Hur, when he's literally at his lowest moment, he is just worked to the bone, he can't go anymore. Jesus comes along and gives him some water, and that gives Ben-Hur just a tad bit more energy to just finish the day's work. Circling back and making sure everything comes full circle, we get to Jesus' crucifixion, and Ben-Hur gives Jesus some water. The book that this movie is based off of is a work of fiction. It is not actually part of the Bible. But in terms of biblical movies, I still say this is among one of the greatest. And I know that there are some who might be like, Jesus is in a movie. I'm not here for a lecture. Trust me, this is not a lecture type movie. The fact that Jesus is in here is more for a story purpose rather than a bless ye and follow me. Like, as a practicing Catholic, I know for a fact that I've sat through a lot of lecturing Christian movies, and it's not pretty, but this is not one of them. Another thing I should note is that this movie is 3.5 hours long. There is an intermission and an enter and a closing act, and that's about, I want to say, 5 minutes each, and the intermission, I think maybe 10 or 15, I could be mistaken. You need to invest a lot of time into this. However, I think it is a worthwhile investment. And at the end of the day, Ben-Hur is one of the most epic movies ever made. When I think of an epic movie, I think of either this or Lord of the Rings. This movie is a masterpiece in every conceivable fashion, and do yourself a favor and watch it if you have not. And that's it. That's the end. That's the final AFI Project review. I actually looked on my phone to see when the first one was, AFI Project number 1, Citizen Kane, was published, and it was March 23rd, 2020. So this took me over a year to complete. And without going to too many details, a lot happened in that year due to the pandemic and just everything that happened, not just in the world, but to me in general. Won't bore you with the details, but from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. If you watched just one of these videos, I thank you. If you watched all of them, and believe me, I know a couple of you who have, thank you again. I started the AFI project thinking that this would be a nice little side dish to my channel, but when all the movie theaters closed due to the pandemic, this became the main event pretty much. And I saw this as an avenue to introduce older movies to my audience. Not to say that people didn't know about these older movies, but I wanted to point people in the right direction of those. Because I feel like on social media and Letterboxd, people just talk about like the same 5 or 6 movies and just forget about entire decades of movies. And we talk about what is cinema, what is not. And I think that's a really stupid debate because movies are movies, whatever you guys want it to be. But if you really want to seriously get into movies and analyzing movies and talking about them, I think the AFI 100 is a good place to start. It has an eclectic mix of movies you've definitely heard of, some stuff you may have heard passings of, and movies that you are completely unfamiliar with. That's what happened to me. I've been thinking about it a lot and thinking if I should ever revisit any of these movies or do an AFI project list like 5 years down the line and see if my opinion has changed. And I think I will one day, but I've made it through all of this list, and I can say with pride that I have seen all of these movies. That's a badge of honor for me. I will have one last, I want to call it a companion video, where I talk about modern movies that I would like to see on the AFI list down the line, but this is the end of the AFI project. This is the end of the line. I'll have a channel update video kind of talking about what's coming up in terms of what's going to be replacing the AFI project, but for now, thank you all very much. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you will be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and thank you all very much